Hello, everybody. It is Wednesday in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My name is Adam Bittner, assistant sports editor for multimedia at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, joined for the Wednesday episode of the North Shore Drive by Christoper Carter, our Steelers insider. It's the day after the final practice of Steelers training camp proper. The Saint Vincent College portion of the offseason workout schedule is over. They're going to keep working at the South Side, Chris. Got joint practices with Tampa Bay coming up, so still a lot of preseason action going on, but the Saint Vincent College portion is over. So we thought this would be a good time to talk about winners and losers from that portion of the preseason. Before we do, we just want to thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's Edgar Snyder Associates. Law firms come and go, but what law firm has been here in Western PA fighting for injury victims for more than 40 years? It's Edgar Snyder and Associates. What firm has a staff of over 130 people who live and work here? It's Edgar Snyder and Associates. Law firms come and go, but Edgar Snyder is a name you can always trust. So remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. If you've been hurt in an accident, call them at 1-800-94-EDGAR or visit edgarsnyder.com. They're available 24/7. Chris, I'm excited to get into the winners of training camp. There's always some guys that outperform our expectations, and that's how we're going to kind of define whether you were a winner or a loser. It's not necessarily you're a bad football player or a great football player. It's more, did you finish above or below our expectations going into training camp? So the first name I wanted to throw at you, Chris, is Payton Wilson, because I find him very interesting because Steelers fans have, like, his expectations for him are like way up here. And I almost to the point that I think they're going to be difficult for him to meet. But, by all accounts, he had a good training camp. He had a good preseason game against Jacksonville. So what's your read on Payton Wilson and where he stands going into his second season here at middle linebacker?
When you say Payton Wilson's expectations are way up here, I think you might even say way up here, because it's getting even higher with how with how he's looked in practice. I mean, he's flying all over the place. He's defending the pass. He's stuffing the run, and he's talking trash too. That's the other thing, Adam. Like last year, he was, that's Payton Wilson. He's happy. He's nice. He's a good guy. He's a villain when I see him out there in the field. I mean, you saw that the slam that he had in the preseason game. I've seen him talk a lot of smack even to his own teammates when it's a live offenses versus defense drill. And going into camp, he was one of my camp battles that I was keeping my eye on, because I'm like, okay, Cole Holcomb's back, and Cole Holcomb years ago was signed to be the number one guy. Now he's kind of the number three guy because of Patrick Queen and the rise of Payton Wilson. So I was thinking, like, man, if Payton Wilson doesn't come correct, Cole Holcomb might take his job. And credit to Cole Holcomb, because he came correct in camp. He was good. He was breaking up passes. He picked sixth Mason Rudolph, I think, yesterday. He was very sharp, and he looks like a great option to come off the bench and play inside linebacker. But that's just how good Payton Wilson has been, because he said he basically showed it didn't matter. He's still the guy that's going to be starting next to Patrick Queen. I think Payton Wilson won big this camp. He's just in the second year of his career. If he stays healthy the next 2 years, and he's still being a guy that can play as big against the run and play the pass as well as he does, he could set himself up with a really nice contract after his rookie deal's up.
Yeah, so I'm very interested to see how he gets through this season. Obviously, injury concerns were the thing that dropped him to the third round. Can he avoid that? Mm-hmm. Can he put a full season together? We'll be keeping an eye on all of that. Chris, the next name on my list will go offense this time. I think we're kind of going to be switching off here, offense, defense a little bit. Darnell Washington was a guy who was opening eyes throughout training camp, had the big preseason game with the touchdown catch from Mason Rudolph. So I think it's pretty easy to say that he was a winner. I guess the question is why, and in what way is he setting himself up to excel? I think we thought about him a lot in the blocking role last year, as opposed to, a big piece of the passing game. Do you think he's going to be a piece of the passing game still with Pat Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith around? Why has he succeeded, and what are your expectations for him coming out of this camp?
Darnell Washington's become a better route runner. That's the crazy part about this, is that he's actually improved. Like, this guy's 6'7". He's listed at 260. I think he's more like 290, just the way when I look at him. But this guy is running good routes. You saw the touchdown grab he had from Mason Rudolph in the preseason game. And yes, Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith are going to be a factor. But, like, I'll put it to you the way that the offense operated in 7 shots yesterday at the last practice of camp. The first passing rep is a corner route to DK Metcalf with Joey Porter Jr. close in coverage. Joey Porter does a great job playing it, pressing it, knocking the ball down. And so the offense is like, all right, we need to get into this next one. So what do? They line up Darnell Washington out wide. He gets lined up with a safety, Deshaun Elliott, and they basically say, hey, run the fade. And all he has to do is just kind of walk his guy back into the end zone, turn around, and if the ball's just put up high enough, he'll just go up and get it because he's 6'7". He's taller than anyone else that's going to be against him in coverage, and he's boxing guys out. And now because he's running better routes, it's hard to predict where he's going. And it's crazy to think this, but I think that Darnell Washington might have been the person on offense who benefited the most from training camp because he showed how versatile he can be, and that's with him being the third tight end. Like, that's crazy to think about, but he should be a bigger part of this offense this year. Like, as much as everyone's worried about wide receiver 2, and should be, because I think that's still a concern. But Darnell Washington is a guy that I think has earned a lot more playing time this year. And I've said it for years. I thought he should be a red zone target whenever they get down to the red zone. I think this year it's like, okay, you better throw him the ball when you get down inside the 10 and you have a chance to score, because every time that he has that chance to go up against a defender one-on-one with a simple jump ball, that's a chance. That's a good chance at a touchdown.
Steelers are 3.5-point underdogs in the preseason game this coming weekend, according to our friends at FanDuel. So we'll be interested to see if Darnell Washington can back up the nice debut with an excellent effort against Tampa Bay. Chris, let's go back to defense. Yahya Black was a name. I remember talking about him on a podcast with Brian heading into camp as, can he establish himself as a rotational piece? I think with the amount of guys in front of him, it's still going to be hard for him to take an outright starting position. So maybe he is still in that rotational piece conversation, but it seems like they're going to want to try to find snaps for him as opposed to, maybe taking a redshirt year, as a lot of people thought he might, and not get in there much unless there was an injury or something.
So what's funny was that was another camp battle that I was circling at the start of camp. And it wasn't just Yahya Black versus one person. It was Yahya Black versus basically everyone who's a backup defensive tackle in this defense, because Derrick, Harmon, Keeanu, Benton, and Cam Heyward are definitely your starters this year. But Yahya Black became the first guy off the bench throughout training camp. Now, he suffered an injury on the last week, and he sat out the last practice that was padded. So we got to see what that is. It looked like he had a pad on his elbow or something. But my goodness, Adam, this guy moves people so easily. And you saw Brian Baldinger breaking down his tape from the first preseason game, and he was just so blown away by how strong this guy is. There were reps where I saw Yahya Black go up against Mason McCormick, the second-year guard who earned a starting job last year. And there were times that he was laughing as he was going up against him, because he was just overwhelming him with his size and his strength. The Steelers might have found a true goon at defensive tackle with the 5th round pick, and him plus Derrick Harmon could be a rejuvenation of what they need up the middle in this defense. Big physical dudes who can take up a lot of snaps, who can help protect the linebackers from the offensive linemen in the run game, and can try to push people back in the pass game. Yahya Black, absolute winner in camp. And Steelers fans, if you get a chance to see this guy, keep an eye on him, because I think he has the chance to be, one of those guys like if you remember, Brett Kiesel was a 7th round pick that turned into a perennial starter for the Steelers defense for a while. I think he has a chance to like that, where he was a late pick in the draft, but could turn into a stud for the defensive line for the long term.
Scotty Miller is a name that I don't think was on anyone's board going into training camp. It seems to have meshed stylistically pretty well with Aaron Rodgers. I think we can all agree he was a winner. I think everyone listening to this probably, gets that at this point. How much of a winner was he, Chris? And how big of a role can he have in this offense? Is he possibly the wide receiver 2 that we're talking about by the middle of October here, even though you have Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin, the third guys the Steelers have invested draft picks in? Is he still going to be maybe more of a depth guy? Where do you see him fitting into this offense with Aaron Rodgers?
I wouldn't put him at wide receiver 2. I would put him as like a wide receiver 4 or a sub for wide receiver 3. I still think wide receiver 2 is Calvin Austin and then Roman Wilson. But Calvin Austin hasn't practiced for a while, so we got to see what happens there. That's one that we can't get any clarity on. So keep an eye on that. Roman Wilson, though, has stepped up. And, I didn't say this before the show, but Roman Wilson, I think, is a winner as well for training camp because he's put himself in position to actually get more consideration this time around. And, he's not been injured. He's been making plays. He's been steady growing. I like what I see there. But when it comes to Scotty Miller, I think the reason he's a winner is because when I looked at this wide receiver room when we first got it, for the depth chart going into training camp, I thought DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin, and Roman Wilson were your obvious 3. But then they signed Robert Woods, so it's like, okay, they like him. They're paying Ben Skoranek, decent money to be like the 5th receiver / special teamer. So I was like, ooh, that could leave Scotty Miller on the ways out. But the thing is Scotty Miller's been the best 4th option, better than Ben Skoranek. Honestly, better than Robert Woods. He's fast, he's quick, and what I think is working in his favor is that he is quickly adapting to the details that Aaron Rodgers needs in the offense. When Aaron Rodgers, needs a flatter route or a certain thing on timing to get changed, Scotty Miller has been right on it, and I think that Aaron Rodgers has appreciated that. And Scotty Miller talked about, hey, he's used to this because he once quarterback. His quarterback was once Tom Brady, and he actually made the game-winning catch that beat Aaron Rodgers in the NFC Championship game back when he was with the Buccaneers. So I think that Scotty Miller basically, I think he's won him a job. I think he's got the job. He's going to be on the final 53-man roster. So good on him. And that's not to say I know that the Steelers are categorically missing like an obvious wide receiver 2, but there were a lot of guys pushing for that wide receiver 4 and 5 spot. Brandon Johnson, I thought, had a good camp. Rock Taylor had an okay camp, but he was an undrafted rookie with really good size. I thought he could have made the difference there. Robert Woods, again, as I said, but Lance McCutcheon, I thought, had a really good camp at wide receiver. Keshawn Williams had some really good looks. And then the guy that I think everyone's excited to see, but just I don't know how he fits in, is Max Hurlman. This guy has come in here. He's small, he's shifty, he's quick, but he's out here making tough catches. He's getting open, and the Steelers want to find a way to get the ball to him. But Scotty Miller had held all of them off. He'll be on that final 53-man roster, and deservedly so.
Yeah, and I think it's a reflection of how different the difference a quarterback can make, and the difference between Russell Wilson, who was seemingly so throwing outside the numbers, moon ball oriented, versus Aaron Rodgers, who maybe is going to be working the middle a little bit more. I know you talked about that in a recent podcast, so make sure you check that one out, folks. A couple more quickly here, Chris. Jalen Ramsey was a name I had written down because I think I don't know if he's a winner in the sense that he can improve his position. He's making $26.5 million. Everyone knows he's going to be a big piece of this defense, but I think there's a lot more optimism around that trade that involved Minkah Fitzpatrick than when camp began. I think a lot of people scratched their heads and said, well, you swapped one defensive back out for another. How is it going to change anything? I think now that we've seen it on the practice field at Saint Vincent College, people are excited about Jalen Ramsey. Why are you excited about him in this defense?
When the Steelers got Minkah Fitzpatrick from the Dolphins back in 2019, he got a chance to flourish. He was not being used the way I think that worked for him. He got put in a defense that was like really excited to use him in different ways, and he became superstar, first-team All-Pro Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think the Steelers could be that kind of an opportunity for Jalen Ramsey, who, liked his time with the Dolphins, and he said that much on the Pivot podcast with Ryan Clark earlier this week. But when I hear him talk about the Steelers, he is just so enamored with the Steelers defense and what Mike Tomlin and Terrell Austin are doing, and even the competition he has around him. Like, he's like Joey Porter Jr. and him. If you listen to him talk about, hey, when they're going up against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, Jalen Ramsey's like, I got Jamar. Like he is that dude he's gonna take on every top player that he faces. I've been saying this. I think Jalen Ramsey has the potential to be the biggest villain in the NFL this year. The way he talks, the way he walks, the way he's just physical. You don't like nobody. He can turn that off on a switch for his teammates and everything. But this guy looks the part. When he was in training camp, Adam, this guy was just taking everything over. And if you weren't on defense with him, you were his enemy. I mean, hey, we were his enemy as reporters. He wouldn't talk to us. And it was just like, man, you appreciate that kind of guy. I think he has the chance to bring the nasty back to the Steelers defense. I think the Steelers defense has been nasty at times, but like the Steelers defense has been lacking that super villain, that like James Harrison presence, where like TJ Watt is a better player than James Harrison, but TJ Watt's like, respectful, and he does things the right way, and he does, and he may talk a little trash, but it's not too that. No, Jalen Ramsey, you don't care what he said, he's going to talk about you, he's going to talk about everybody and he's also going to beat you down. He's going to be physical, he's going to take away the pass, he's going to take away the run. I think Jalen Ramsey won because he is going to be in a position to be the best version of himself, which is saying a lot because that guy's also a three-time first-team All-Pro.
He was talking about trading his Rolls Royce in for the Ram truck as well on that Pivot podcast. I think that might encapsulate, what he's going for. And I don't know, does that stuff matter in the end? Probably not, but at least mentally, it seems that he is positioning himself to play as you're describing. And I think that's going to excite a lot of Steelers fans when they finally get a chance to see him in extended action. Last one I had for you, Chris. Broderick Jones started off camp badly. Immediately, people were like, I don't know. Do the Steelers have a problem there? Played decently in the preseason game. Now I think there's a pretty decent degree of optimism around Broderick Jones. What was your assessment of the 3 weeks for him, in terms of the ups and the downs?
I thought early on, he had some rougher looking practices, but I was also like, first week without pads, don't care, because being an offensive lineman trying to block really quick defensive players with no pads on is next to impossible. And the Steelers defense is really talented. So I didn't put much stock in that. And then he started to come up a little bit here and there. He get occasional reps and not look great doing them. But then this last 2 weeks or so, when he was back to full strength and he was out there in full pads, this guy looked good. He was putting his hands on guys. He was winning leverage. He was showing better footwork. He was looking like he was in place. I think Broderick Jones won this camp in the sense that now there is tape. There is a sense that he can do this job, which before this camp, you were worried. You just hadn't seen it, and you needed to see it. And I think that Broderick Jones, you're going to see a lot from him this year in the good sense, because I think that he has gotten so much better as a blocker, both in the run and the pass. And I think that he's still getting better and sharpening up every day. But Broderick Jones, I'll put in the win category.
All right, that is it for our winners. We're going to talk losers from Steelers training camp as well. So make sure you're tuned to the North Shore Drive podcast on our Post-Gazette Sports YouTube channel. Lots more to get to. We'll talk to you on the other side.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.